So with Season 1 of the War Within starting today, we've learned a bunch of new information, and more specifically, a bunch of new information on Delves. So in this video, I want to go over pretty much all the information you need to know on how to most effectively use Delves to gear up as quickly as possible, and to also make running the Delves themselves much more easily. Because doing Tier 8 Delves by yourself this early on in the season is either impossible or very difficult if you have the gear. But there are some very easy ways to make these incredibly easy. So the first thing you need to do when starting your Delve journey is get up to Tier 8. So every tier of Delve you complete, it'll unlock the next one, and you keep doing them until you get up to Tier 8, whether that be solo or with a group. And I'm also going to explain why doing Delves with a group is so much easier. But if you're like 580 item level, you should be able to go get up to Tier 8. It's really at Tier 8 where it gets extremely difficult to solo. And while you're doing these Delves, to get up to Tier 8, try to get all the experience you can with Bran. You want to get him to level 15 before you get into your Bountiful Delves, and don't run any Bountiful Delves before you get up to Tier 8, because there's only one Bountiful Delve you can do in each zone on a daily basis. So you don't want to waste one before you're at Tier 8. So now you've gotten up to Tier 8 in your Delves, and at this point, this is where you want to start running your Bountiful Delves. So your 4 Bountiful Delves every single day. Now, first off, you're going to want to have restored coffer keys. So if you haven't been saving these up, go do your weekly objectives. So special operations or your open world events or the weekly quests you pick up in Dornegal. The first 4 of those every week will give you 4 restored coffer keys. And then you can also get some restored coffer key fragments from world quests, but it just depends if world quests that have that as a reward are currently up, and you need 100 of those fragments to get an additional key. So you can also look around for all the world quests to see if you can get an additional from that as well. So now you have Tier 8 unlocked, you have some restored coffer keys, so now you're ready to jump in to your Bountiful Delves. Now I would very much recommend to not do this solo. Unless you're like 600 item level, you're going to want to get a group. And even if you're 600 item level, getting a group is just substantially more easy, because not only does the scaling of the Delves not scale up equivalently to just getting more players with you, so it's just generally easier through that, but there's a few things that make it substantially easier. First off, you can get a group of 5 players and the leader will still have their Bran with them. So you basically have 6 characters when you're grouped up with 5 other players, so it's just going to be much easier off of that. But then you can also cheese revives being with the group. So if you don't know, in Delves, you actually have a limited amount of lives. So if you die in a Delve and release, you use one of your revives. And at Tier 8, I think it's 5 total revives. But if you're in a group and someone revives you, you don't use a life from your Delve. So even if your whole group wipes on something, you can just have one person release and go revive everybody else, and you would only lose 1 life. And also, the more lives you lose, the less loot you get at the end of the Delve. Now, I'm pretty sure this reduction in loot is only for like currencies like Valor Stones or the Delve specific currency. It doesn't change the potential gear you could be getting at the end of the dungeon. So if you're trying to do Tier 8 Delves this early, I would recommend getting in a group for it. Go into the group finder. There's a section for Delves. Tons of people are queuing for these, so it shouldn't take too long to actually get a group. But that's absolutely not all, because there's some ways to get some ridiculous loot from Delves that have a little bit more RNG. And this extra loot can come from an item that you have a chance to get while running Bountiful Delves, and these are Delver's Bounty. These are basically a map item you can randomly get from Bountiful Delves that will give you additional loot the next time you run a Delve of equivalent tier. So if you're doing a Tier 8 Delve and you find this Delver's Bounty map, it will want you to run another Tier 8 Delve. This is also another really big reason why you don't want to be running Bountiful Delves before you get to Tier 8, because say if you're running a Tier 5 Bountiful Delve, you could get a Delver's Bounty map, but it would want you to do another tier 5 map. And the reason that's so important is because once you use this Delver's Bounty map and complete your next Delve's Bounty, you'll get a bunch of different currencies. So you'll get some high tier crests, you'll get a bunch of undercoins, you'll get some items for brand, you'll get some resonant crystals, but you will also get a piece of gear. And this piece of gear is dependent on the Delve tier you're doing. But what's really crazy about the piece of gear you're getting from this Delver's Bounty is that if you're doing it on tier 8, it is a 610 piece of hero track gear. Now, if you're doing a tier 8 Bountiful Delve and you use your restored copper key at the end, that's giving you 603 champion gear. So the piece of gear you would get from getting one of these maps is the next tier of gear, and in fact this is the same tier of gear you would be getting from your Great Vault at the end of the week if you're doing tier 8 delves. I think specifically you would get a 616 piece of gear from your Great Vault, so that would still be on the hero track. It would just be 3 of 6, and from the Delver's Bounty you would get a 610 piece of gear, which is 1 of 6, and that is absolutely absurd. So getting one of these Delver's Bounty map from your tier 8 run is just giving you another really high piece of gear that the majority of the player base will not have a piece of this high item level yet. And not only that, but there is a random event that can happen while running your Bountiful Delves that I don't want to fully spoil, but if you've ever played Diablo 4 and you've come across the Butcher in any of the Nightmare dungeons you're running, it is a very similar thing to that, and that event that happens can also give you a Delver's Bounty map from that event, and if you successfully complete this event, I'm pretty sure you will just get an additional piece of gear as well. On one of my characters, we got this event to happen, but we pulled too much and died when it happened, so we didn't get the extra piece of gear, but we still got loot, and someone got a Delver's Bounty map from that event loot. So there's also some additional chances to get some more loot as well. And if you saw my last video where I went over the best ways to go about gearing up once season 1 starts, I said to go do your Mythic 0 dungeons before doing your tier 8 delves, but I would say flip that now. I would say to go get into tier 8 delves, do your 4 Bountiful delves, and then start your daily Mythic 0s, because both of these pieces of content, your Mythic 0s and your Bountiful delves, are on a daily lockout. But because of how easy tier 8 delves are when you're in a group, it's actually going to be much easier to go do that than go do Mythic 0s, because if you're pugging Mythic 0s right now, a lot of people are definitely not up to the difficulty of Mythic 0s this early on with these lower item levels. Those dungeons are actually pretty difficult right now. And as a final note, there's also a reputation track with delves. So if you go talk to Brand and Dornegal and the other delve NPCs, there'll be a reputation track with 10 different rewards because there's multiple vendors, and anytime you run delves, you'll be getting the Undercity currency, which you spend at these vendors for a bunch of different things, primarily cosmetics. But once you get to a certain point in this reputation track, you'll actually be able to buy more coffer keys from the NPCs. And if I'm not mistaken, this is infinitely farmable just by doing delves. I'm a little over reward 1 out of 10. And the more alts you have, the easier this is going to be, because you could just go do the Bountiful delves on all of those alts and get even more reputation. So if you're somebody that really wants to farm a lot of delves, you can also get more keys, getting a high enough reputation, and then just buying the keys from the vendor as well. But that's pretty much everything I wanted to go over for delves in season 1. I think they've kind of overstacked delves on loot a little bit because they want people to play the new system. So that means that utilizing these delves is going to gear you up pretty quickly. But that's all I want to go over. So thanks for watching.